whisper cheating right there?
First up, we head to Manchester, Iowa for the trial of hog farmer Todd Mullis. He's been charged with first-degree murder for allegedly killing his wife of 14 years. In November 2018, Amy Mullis was found face down in a shed on their farm with a corn rake sticking out of her back. Her husband called 911, claiming Amy must have fallen onto the rake. Mullis put Amy in his truck and rushed to the hospital. While driving, he on the line with paramedics who instructed Mullis to pull over and begin CPR.
I found her and you're in the truck.
Okay, you're headed to the hospital and she's in your vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, sir, what happened that she's not conscious or breathing?
She fell on a fork. I took a fork out of her.
Amy Lynn died at the hospital, but it didn't take long for police to suspect foul play. For starters, Mullis had 6 stab wounds in her back, yet the corn rake had only 4 times. It's the steel points at the end of the fork. The couple, who had 3 children together, also had marital problems over Amy's infidelity. And there were rumors about a possible divorce, which could result in Todd losing half the farm. Mullis was charged with murder, but pleaded not guilty.
Please be seated, everyone.
At the trial, Mullis took the stand. As prosecutor Maureen Hughes questions him specifically about his effort to save Amy's life.
Where is it that you performed the CPR on Amy?
I started in the truck.
And you're holding onto that phone and you're doing the chest compressions.
I had my shoulder holding my phone against my ear.
So at that point, the only people in the car are you and Amy, right?
Yes.
And at this point, you don't at all think that Amy's cheating on you.
No.
When you're actually there giving her CPR and you're giving those chest compressions, all you're thinking about is trying to save her life.
Yes.
At this point, the prosecution plays an excerpt from Mullis's conversation with paramedics, zeroing in on a faint whisper delivered from the defendant's very own mouth.
No, John, did you just hear that whisper at the end of that?
Yes.
And what did you whisper?
I couldn't hear it.
Okay, I'm going to play it again.
The prosecutor cues it up again.
Todd, do you whisper cheating right there?
No.
So you don't remember what you whispered?
No.
But prosecutor Hughes isn't done. She's got one more questionable comment to run by Mullis.
Okay, I'm going to play another clip for you. Do you know what you whispered there?
No.
Did you hear that?
The prosecutor cues up the second clip one more time for Mullis and the jury.
Just try to listen really closely. I just want to know if you remember what you said. Right there, do you say go to hell cheating?
No.
So you don't hear that?
No.
You didn't hear at 6:53 cheating? You didn't hear that?
I didn't hear that word.
And it's right at that, after you hear a ping, you don't hear go to hell cheating.
No.
Turns out some members of the jury heard what was suggested by the prosecution, but others did not. Ultimately, it wouldn't matter. Additional evidence presented by the prosecution, including a history of Google searches on Mullis's iPad of phrases including killing unfaithful women, were enough to seal his fate. After 6.5 hours, the jury returned with a unanimous verdict: guilty. Mullis is sentenced to life in prison, where he'll have no chance at parole. Next, we head to a virtual bond hearing in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Judge Tabitha Blackman presiding.
Demetrius Lewis on page 26.
The defendant is Demetrius Lewis, who appears remotely.
How you doing? How you doing?
All right, I'm good, sir. How are you?
Good.
Lewis is charged with possession of an illegal substance and attempted burglary, a felony which could send him to prison for 5 years. But today, he's got other things on his mind besides his legal situation.
Judge, you're so gorgeous, Miss Judge. I just have to tell you, you're gorgeous.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
With the entire Zoom watching, Lewis makes a not-so-subtle play for the judge. Notice the reactions from the other parties, including prosecutor Eric Linder.
Judge. You're so gorgeous, Miss Judge. I just have to tell you, you're gorgeous.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Maybe Lewis's charm will help his cause.
All right, Mr. Lewis, flattery will get you everywhere, but maybe not here.
Or maybe not. Judge Blackman remains focused on moving forward with the case.
The court finds probable cause on count 1, burglary, occupied dwelling, unarmed. Count 2, possession of MDMA ecstasy.
She then asked the state for its recommendation.
Your Honor, I'm recommending a $7,500 bond, no victim contact, no return. Noting the allegations, Your Honor, there were 3 children present in the home that Mr. Lewis was attempting to break into.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Linder.
Lewis objects, but the judge moves on to the defense and then renders her decision. She sets his bond at $5,000, which is significantly better than the $7,500 requested by the prosecution.
You're gorgeous.
Next, we're in Louisville, Kentucky, for the trial of 17-year-old Joshua Young. The teen's been charged with complicity to murder and tampering with evidence in the brutal killing of his 14-year-old stepbrother, Trey Zwicker. More than 2 years earlier, Zwicker was found bludgeoned to death in a creek near where the teens lived. Now Young is standing trial and has been implicated through testimony from a cousin who claims Young admitted to the killing. But just a few months earlier, it was Young's father, Joshua Gauker, who pleaded guilty to actually carrying out the murder. After being sentenced to life in prison, Gauker appears in shackles at his son's trial to remind everyone what he told them already, that he and he alone was responsible for killing his stepson, Trey Zwicker. His son Joshua had nothing to do with it.
Since arraignment court, I've told you I've done it. I admitted everything I've done. I've been sentenced for it, life in prison. Yet here I am, going over this same f***ing story.
Gauker also explained his motivation for the horrific crime: to get even with his wife, the victim's mother, after she aborted their unborn child. In his confession, he said that he alone used a metal pipe to beat his stepson to death and left his body in a creek.
You're the mastermind, right?
I mean, you can call it what you want. It's not easy to be a mastermind when you're dealing with dumb people.
But prosecutors believe he was trying to protect Joshua. They're not buying the father's story and press Gauker for details.
You told the judge that after you all smoked the blunt, that Amanda fell asleep?
Yeah, she fell asleep.
And that you went out on the couch to play Mortal Kombat?
I don't know. I know what you're doing. You're trying to make microscopic little holes in the that I didn't even give a about 2 years ago. So how can I tell you the exact thing now when I really didn't give a then?
If you're telling the truth, it shouldn't be so hard.
Finally, when asked why he killed his stepson, Gauker delivers a chilling answer.
And it just felt right. I mean, I know it sounds monstrous and all that, but it's not. If we was in the Old Testament, it'd be the same thing.
After more than a week-long trial, Gauker's son, Joshua Young, was found not guilty of complicity to murder and tampering with evidence. But the story doesn't end there. 6 years later, despite his father's confession, Joshua Young claimed he was the true killer in a detailed confession letter obtained by the news media. Young wrote that he was, quote, ready to get the raw and uncut truth out there, yet never provided a clear motive for the murder. Despite the confession letter, under the legal principle of double jeopardy, Young cannot be tried again in a criminal case for the murder of Trey Zwicker after having already been acquitted.
All right, Missy, Jennifer Kangemi.
Now to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where Judge John Hurley is conducting video bond hearings with inmates in Broward County.
Ms. Kangemi, you're charged with an aggravated battery, crime's probable cause. Do we have any priors on Ms. Kangemi?
Oh, yeah.
Judge Hurley's then informed that the defendant is 17 weeks pregnant, a crucial fact for understanding the crime.
Okay, so, unusual set of circumstances, 4 o'clock in the morning, and the defendant allegedly threw a cell phone and hit the victim, Mr. Edwards, in the head. The defendant is 17 weeks pregnant, and she stated that she was craving Oreo cookies and became upset when she discovered that Mr. Edwards had eaten her Oreo cookies.
The victim, Mr. Edwards, is the baby's father and alleged Oreo thief. Notice as Judge Hurley reads from the case file.
And she stated that she was craving Oreo cookies
The defendant can't help but laugh at the absurdity of the situation.
and became upset when she discovered that Mr. Edwards had eaten her Oreo cookies. I tell ya.
But what's not so funny is the injury brought on by her cookie craving.
He received allegedly 3 staples in the head as a result of munching on her cookies.
I think the harm is greater than the intent, Your Honor.
That's Public Defender Dale Miller, and apparently he can relate to the situation.
I know you've been here before. Oreo cookie cravings can be awfully strong. I would ask the judge to be as lenient as possible on the bond in this case.
Before setting a bond amount, Judge Hurley talks through the curious details of the case one last time.
She's pregnant. She's in jail. She's got no criminal record. And somebody ate her Oreo cookies. So
I'm familiar with the facts.
that does seem like a mitigating factor here that we can't overlook. Ma'am, let me ask you, who's going to bond you out of jail?
I don't know. I have the money at my house.
Okay, I'm going to do this, ma'am. I'm going to release you on your own recognizance, all right? I'm going to allow you to have telephone contact with him, all right? You have to stay 500 feet from him at all times. Do you understand that, ma'am?
Yes.
Good luck. Thank you. All right, ma'am?
Good luck, ma'am.
Ma'am.
And before she leaves, Judge Hurley shares one final thought.
Ma'am, can I give you some advice? Hide your Oreo cookies next time, right, ma'am?
Yes.
Don't let anyone get near them. All right, ma'am.
The charges against Jennifer Kangemi would later be dropped. This is the Turner Guilford Night Correctional Center in Miami, Florida. And this is Eduardo Arama. Arama's supposed to be locked up inside said facility, but he's not. And that's a problem. The inmate did not escape. Instead, a paperwork error triggered his early release into the public on what just happened to be his 52nd birthday. It was a nice present, considering Arama still had just under a year to serve, linked to criminal mischief, probation violation, and shooting or throwing a deadly missile into a dwelling or vehicle. Yes, throwing a missile into a dwelling or vehicle. After realizing the mistake, authorities issued warnings to the public, including this wanted flyer. Based on Arama's criminal record, his accidental release was a serious situation. For nearly 3 days, there was no sign of Arama until he resurfaced in an unlikely place. On a Zoom call with the Miami-Dade Circuit Court. That's Arama, who, despite being aware that he's currently a wanted man, looks pretty relaxed from an undisclosed location with a friendly little pooch on his lap. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Broward County Court set up an easily accessible portal for remote hearings. Prior to his release, Arama had a hearing scheduled for today that he should be joining from inside the correctional facility. But instead, it looks like he's on the patio. Despite being wanted by police, he shows up for his hearing and is even a little early. At the time, the only other person on the video call is his attorney, Assistant Public Defender Fadia Salem. But after a brief conversation discussing his situation with her, he hangs up before the actual hearing begins.
Mr. Arama is a sentenced inmate. He is sentenced to state prison. He was released in error.
As you know, Mr. Arama was present. His video was working. Then he turned it off.
Ms. Salem, have you spoken with him about surrendering?
Judge, I have spoken to him. This is his only request. He has only but a few possessions left to his name and a dog. And he's merely asking for the court to give him a date to surrender so that he can find somebody to take those possessions.
Despite the fact that Arama is supposed to be in jail, Salem continues to make the case for a little more free time for her client.
Your Honor, he's not a flight risk. Answers authorities' calls, appears in court on Zoom, is not at risk for a flight. We're merely asking for a day so that he can get his possessions to somebody to take care of.
But Judge Marlene Fernandez-Caravezos seems to think Arama's dog-sitting vacation has lasted long enough.
He's had that day, Ms. Salem. He was released on Monday. It's now Thursday. He surrendered today.
Eduardo Arama was taken back into custody the following day without incident. The Miami-Dade Department of Corrections issued a statement saying, quote, "Our review of the circumstances surrounding this inmate release is ongoing to include a full internal investigation." For our next story, we head to Alpine, Texas, for a hearing conducted over Zoom that caused quite a stir. The case involves illegal contraband, and the judge is Roy Ferguson, who can only be heard via audio. There are 3 attorneys present. We have H. Gibbs Bauer. Next is Jerry Phillips. And finally, we have Rod Ponton.
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to take a look.
Can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
While everyone was no doubt surprised by the guest feline, it probably gave them pause. You wouldn't know it, as the other parties remain totally professional.
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings.
Although Bauer does put on his glasses to get a better look.
You might want to take a look.
Can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
Ponton's comment gets a slight smile out of Phillips.
I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I can see that.
Ponton says he was unsure how the filter appeared on the screen, but the problem was quickly rectified, and the judge later posted the clip for educational purposes, as a reminder for all to check video option settings before joining a virtual meeting. It immediately went viral, receiving over 10 million views, and became a catalyst for memes across the internet.
I think if you click the up arrow...
Ponton was understandably embarrassed by the incident, but said if he could give people a laugh in these difficult times, then he was happy to do it at his expense.
I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
Joining us now is the feline attorney, Rod Ponton. Thank you so much for joining us. You're right. You are not a cat. You are a person. There you are.
How you doing, Dan? I'm not a cat.
So what happened?
Well, Dan, I was using a secretary's computer at one of my remote offices. We've been doing Zoom court hearings for 9 months. You check into court, you get into the waiting room, your picture appears in the waiting room, and then the judge calls the case and he pulls you into the virtual courtroom. So there I was, waiting in the waiting room. The judge called the case. We transferred to the virtual courtroom, and miraculously, I appeared as a cat, to my great surprise.
Well, that's all we really wanted to know.
Perfect. That's P-U-R-R-F-E-C-T.
Yeah.
It wasn't my computer and it wasn't my cat, but it's forever bonded to me, I think, for the rest of my life.
Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being such a good sport.
Thank you so much, and I hope everybody got a big laugh out of it. We'd all had a stressful year, and I think the world needed to have a good chuckle, even if it's at my expense.
That's it for this edition of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Abrams, and this is Court Cam.
Call the buzzer.
Take him back! Take him out! I hope you die in prison as well. I wouldn't kill her. I have never had any violent behavior.
First up, we head to San Diego, California. The defendant is Peter Robbins, one-time child actor and voice of beloved TV character Charlie Brown. He's in court for violating his probation for consumption of alcohol and removal of a GPS anklet. 2 years earlier, Robbins pled guilty to stalking his ex-girlfriend, Shauna Kern, and threatening a doctor who performed breast enhancement surgery on her. He was given 5 years probation. But today, Judge Robert O'Neill has revoked it, leading Robbins to reconsider his plea on the stalking charge.
Defendant Mr. Robbins remanded without bail.
I'm withdrawing my guilty plea.
Good luck on that, Mr. Robbins.
Good luck to you.
Good grief. The judge just rejected Robbins' request to withdraw the guilty plea. He's furious and not shy about it.
To stick me in jail for 124 days? Do you have a conscience? Do you? I have not committed any crime. I'm telling you, I'm revoking, you revoke my probation, I revoke my criminal threat. I never criminally threatened this woman. In order for it to be a criminal threat she has to believe that I would kill her. I wouldn't kill her. I have never had any violent behavior. I want a new trial.
As things continue to unravel, Robbins' attorney speaks up. The judge delays sentencing and orders Robbins to undergo a psychiatric evaluation, but not before Robbins takes the blockhead approach and gives the judge a parting shot.
I hope you drop dead of a heart attack, you stupid. Thank you.
Robbins was deemed competent and ultimately found guilty of stalking and making criminal threats. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Next, we're in Miami, Florida, where Judge Nusheen Safi is about to recognize a familiar name on her bond hearing docket.
Johnny Ray Smith Jr. Oh my God.
These two have a storied history, and you're going to hear all about it.
The same charges, that same baby mama, she did the same thing that the wife did. I left the house like you told me.
In a previous domestic case, Smith was convicted of criminal mischief, and Judge Safi advised that he leave the home where he'd been staying with the complainant. In that same case, Smith revealed to the court that he had fathered more than 30 children. And apparently still counting.
Remember, she was pregnant and she had another kid, so I'm at 40 now.
And that's your argument? Wait, that's your argument for you want me to let you out?
No, not that. No, listen.
Remember that birth control lecture I gave you back when you only had 31 kids?
Listen to you, listen. I swear I listen to you. I just moved out. I stay on my own. I got a new girlfriend. That's what she mad about.
I don't blame her.
But listen, I left. I never went back to the house. I never called.
You didn't listen to anything I said.
No, I did. I left. You told me to leave.
You also no more kids.
Similar to his previous case, Smith's charges today include criminal mischief and burglary related to incidents involving another mother of some of his children.
Your Honor, I was...
Mr. Smith, how about if you be quiet for a minute?
Okay, no problem.
Try doing that for 1 minute, if you can.
All right.
As the judge goes through the case file, a public defender chimes in.
Your Honor's history with Mr. Smith and knowledge of Mr. Smith, as well as the allegations before the court at this point.
Just make it clear that my history with him is as a judge.
Mr. Smith.
You're not staying there, correct?
I did exactly what you told me. I left. No.
Mr. Smith, just answer yes or no.
Can I put him on vasectomy?
Please don't do it.
Judge Safi doesn't have that kind of power, but she can take away his social life by placing him under house arrest using a tracking bracelet.
$1 a day for the bracelet.
You finna do me like that again? That was torture last time.
You're not gonna have to post a bond. You're gonna be on a bracelet.
Thank you.
Before they part ways, the judge also issues Smith a final warning.
If you come back with any other baby mamas, I'm gonna revoke your bond and keep you in jail. Condoms, use them.
Okay.
Next, we go to a pretrial hearing in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Jeremy Hsu, age 39, is charged with first-degree home invasion, car theft, identity theft, and possession of a controlled substance. The defendant arrives in a wheelchair after suffering a number of strokes over the years. That's Hsu's attorney, Walter White.
Any other motions or preliminary matters?
I would just restate my previous request that I be allowed to withdraw from the case.
Hsu's attorney just asked to be removed from the case.
Mr. Hsu and I have basically no communication. He prepares his own motions. He has asked me to file them. Sometimes I have, sometimes I have not. He's had a series of strokes. I mean,
He's in a wheelchair.
Even though Shu's in a wheelchair, not even his own attorney is sure about the severity of his condition.
I don't know what his physical health is, but I know that he's maybe not as strong as he used to be. And so I would just ask Your Honor to consider allowing me to withdraw so that he can get an attorney that he can work with.
I previously ruled in your motion to withdraw, and nothing has changed in interim, so I'll stand by that ruling.
I'd like to represent myself then, Your Honor.
That's right. If Shu can't have his way, then he'll just represent himself.
Well, I would strongly urge you not to do that. Mr. White's been a criminal defense attorney for as long as I can remember.
That's your opinion. I don't buy your opinion.
But that's fine. You don't have to buy my opinion. But he is a lawyer, and you're not.
I'm a better lawyer than you.
That's your opinion as well. If you want to proceed and represent yourself, we can do that. Jury trial will be the 21st of January at 8:30.
I need time to go through pretrial motions.
January 21 at 8:30. Mr.
I haven't
White.
had no time to go through pretrial motions. What the are you talking about, dude?
Sensing the escalating tension, 2 court officers step in behind Shu in case things get physical.
Well, the case has been pending for quite a while. Mr. White has been representing you for quite a while. So
Mr. White hasn't filed nothing. He just asked to withdraw 2 different times. You keep denying it.
No, that's the way it is, sir. So we'll see you on the 21st for jury trial.
It looks like Shu's a little stronger than his attorney realized. Watch again, as Shu easily steps out of the wheelchair to flip the table. The officers force Shu back into the chair, but he's not going quietly. Shu ultimately kept White as his attorney, and it's a good thing he did. White worked a deal where Shu pled no contest to most of his charges and got a reduced sentence of 2.5 years in a county jail. Next, we take you inside the Harnett County Courthouse in Lillington, North Carolina. This is 61-year-old Freddie McAllister. He's being taken into custody for violating a court order in a domestic violence case. In a holding area attached to the courtroom, McAllister gets into a heated argument with a deputy. Then, he makes a break for it. The deputy takes McAllister to the ground where the scuffle continues. The sound of the struggle catches the attention of Judge Paul Holcomb. The deputy appears to be in control of the situation. But then, McAllister makes a move for the officer's gun. And that's when Judge Holcomb decides to step in. With his help, they're able to restrain the enraged McAllister. Other deputies arrive to secure the area, and the potentially deadly situation is brought to a safe conclusion. Following the incident, McAllister received a combined 180 days in jail, 150 for violating the protective order, and an additional 30 days for contempt. He was also charged with resisting a public officer and escape from a local jail. Next, we're in Harlan, Kentucky, for the sentencing hearing of 59-year-old Cletus Robbins Jr. Following a 3-day trial, Robbins was convicted on a litany of shockingly violent charges.
The defendant is guilty of 1, kidnapping and serious physical injury, 2, robbery in the first degree, assault in the second degree, unlawful imprisonment, wanton endangerment first degree, and being a persistent felony offender first degree.
As Judge Kent Hendrickson proceeds with Robbins' laundry list of crimes, the prosecution interjects after Robbins repeatedly turns around and glares at them.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth would request that the court give notice to the defendant not to communicate with the Commonwealth.
In the courtroom, defendants are often prohibited from communicating verbally or non-verbally with anyone except their own attorney. Problem is, Robbins isn't exactly a rule follower.
Don't. Hey, now none of that. Hey, none of that. Now just calm down.
Yeah.
You calm down. You take it easy.
Stand up there on that side, please. Settle down, please.
Okay. Dirty ass court here.
Listen, buddy, I'm too old for this.
Hey, I'm too old for this too.
With tensions later calmed, Robbins stands in silence as Judge Hendrickson hands down a heavy sentence.
He shall be confined to the state penitentiary for a maximum of 25 years. And that concludes this matter before the court. Thank you.
Sentencing may conclude things for the court, but not for Robbins. That is the sound of Cletus Robbins spitting one of the prosecuting attorneys. Before he's hauled out of the courtroom, Robbins makes a final threat.
The court has that on record. We know that that was a threat, and we will be saving that record for possible criminal charges.
No additional charges were filed against Robbins for his courtroom misconduct. His 25-year sentence stands, and a later appeal of the case was denied. Next, we head to the Cowlitz County Courthouse in Washington State. It's 12:40 p.m., just outside the security desk. The woman seen here is Michelle Flavin. Notice she's carrying a pink box. Don't worry, it's nothing dangerous, just a birthday cake for her 9-year-old daughter. She's bringing it inside the courthouse because she's afraid if she leaves it in the car, her dog will eat it. Flavin asks the security officer, there in white, to keep an eye on the cake while she meets with her sister inside. Her cake should be fine at a security checkpoint inside a courthouse. A few minutes later, this man, Robert Fredrickson, arrives at the courthouse. Fredrickson's here because of an indecent exposure charge. He's 50 years old. Fredrickson and the woman in front of him send their valuables through the metal detector. Just out of the frame, Fredrickson sees the birthday cake left with the officer. And what does he do? He puts his hand right in the cake and takes a bite. A woman notices the shameless act and might be thinking she's being punked. There goes Fredrickson, who appears to be licking his fingers. He heads to the water fountain, probably to wash evidence off his hands. The woman calls over another security officer. The officer in white, meanwhile, has eyes on the cake and can see the damage. Not only is Fredrickson busted, he's still licking cake from his fingers. The group gathers around the table, and that's when Fredrickson does the inexplicable. He goes back for seconds. The officer in white has seen enough of this frosting-filled crime scene. Fredrickson and the cake are thrown to the ground. A few more guards arrive, then Fredrickson is arrested. On top of the initial indecent exposure charge he was facing that day, Fredrickson also picked up another charge of third-degree theft, which was the icing on the cake. As for Flavin, a local grocery store heard about the incident and provided her with a brand new cake. Next, we go to the Hamilton County Courthouse in Cincinnati, Ohio. Appearing before the judge is 16-year-old Javon Coulter, who's pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter and aggravated robbery in the death of Suleiman Mutakali.
What's the address of your emergency?
In Thomasville. Somebody looked like they've been shot in the head. He ran on the ground.
Abdul Mutakalim, a husband and Navy veteran, was walking home when he was shot and robbed by 3 men. He was rushed to the hospital and died the next day. The alleged shooter was Coulter, who was only 14 at the time. Coulter was initially charged as a juvenile, but was later transferred to adult court. Before sentencing, the victim's mother, a devout Muslim, speaks directly to her son's killer.
I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but I don't hate you. I can't hate you. It's not our way. My family would like very much to be a part of your seeing a better way of life. Consider allowing our family to come visit you, to work with you, to help improve your education, and you never have to walk this path again.
Sitting in the back of the room is Coulter's mother.
You were a baby, and you are still a child, and I plan to be involved with your mother, if she allows it, to try to help her, because I will always be a part of your life. to your mother, as I told you before, this is harder on you than it is on me for one reason only. I've laid my son to rest. I can't touch him any more than what I touch him spiritually. But you have to live with the fact that you can't touch your son. You can't hold him, yet he is there.
Abdul Mutakalim then makes yet another remarkable gesture, an embrace of Coulter's mother. But she didn't stop there. Before Judge Megan Shanahan announces the sentence, Coulter makes a brief statement to the victim's mother.
Ms. Abdul, I want to let you know I'm sorry.
Coulter was sentenced to 20 years in an Ohio State prison. Earliest release date is 2035, when he'll be 34 years old. Joining us now is Ruqayya Abdul Mutakalim. Thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it. Tell us, what was it like to be in court that day with the young man who took your son's life?
I felt like I was watching a movie. I just sat there in prayer, in spiritual serenity, not to lose anything of myself.
Absolutely.
And to make sure that whatever I did, it was going to be of a respectful manner.
When you went into court that day, did you know you were going to forgive him?
I knew I was going to forgive him, but I didn't know what I was going to say in that.
Many are going to hear your words and think, how could she find forgiveness like this?
How can I say that I should be merciful and that I should be kind if I cannot show this mercy and kind to ones who need it, especially a child?
Javon did apologize to you in court. How did you feel about that?
He turned and said, Miss Abdul, with that voice, I'm so sorry for my part in harming your son. That shook me. And when I hugged him, the tears began to fall from his eyes. You could feel his heart and how devastated for him. His life will never be the same.
Are there times when you just find it too hard to forgive?
I had 2 years before they even brought the young men to court. 2 years. And in those 2 years, I did a lot of soul searching, which is what helped to heal me. The healing starts first with you. When you really have healed, it is not hard to forgive. It's hard not to forgive.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We really appreciate it. That's all for this edition of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching.